Hello, friends and families. Welcome to the EDUCA DPS Podcast, where we inform families and connect communities. My name is Javier Ibarra, your host of the EDUCA DPS Podcast in English. Today, our topic is about the services that the Denver School District provides to our families and students through the Family Constituent Services Department, a branch of the Family and Community Engagement Department, also known as FACE. Today, we have the privilege of having our special guest, Kate Diaz, manager of FCS, also known as the Family Constituent Services, here at Denver Public Schools. Kate, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm very well, and I'm glad to be here.
Kate, I want our audience to get to know you a little better. Can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been with the district? What's the most gratifying thing you do in your day-to-day?
Thank you. Well, I've been with the district for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah, almost all of that with the FACE department.
Okay.
And you know, our work with Family Constituency Services is very different than most school departments or DPS departments, in that, you know, we are a specific team that deals with every kind of subject, concern, anything. So it's a really interesting. It always keeps us on our toes. Mm-hmm. We learn a lot, and partnering with school leaders and with our families in the district it's just really gratifying. It's really wonderful.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned a little bit about that, because I'm going to give our audience members a little bit about this topic. So today, we're getting into Family Constituency Services, which provide a high-quality service using cultural competency practices. They provide services to families, schools, and community members who need assistance accessing the school or the school district resources, addressing concerns, and building skills to be strong partners in their students. So, Kate, my first question for you is, who is Family Constituency Services, or also known as FCS?
Thank you. We're a team that's fairly small. There's 7 of us all together. And we're a diverse team. We have multiple people on our team who are bilingual Spanish. And we use all different manners of communication. So if we need interpretation, we reach out to our interpreters, and we'll, put families together with interpretation services. And we, as a team, take in all kinds of different issues. And
so real quick, I want to know a little bit more. Is this the same, or do you help with the FACE Helpline? Is that similar to what the services that you're doing?
That's a large part of what FCS is. And as the helpline's the main phone contact with the district. So we take in something like 1,000, sometimes more, calls in a month.
Okay.
We also manage email for our district, which is, 200 or so emails also a month. And we document everything, we track everything. We've split our categories into 2 different ones, Tier 1 and Tier 2. And once we have a general idea of what somebody is calling and asking for, then we do some research. Sometimes people call and ask about the weather conditions and school closures. They talk or ask questions about the Board of Education and policies. We have families who might need resources from our community hubs or other resources. We have comments really about any issue that's going on in the district. Times we might need to reach out to other departments in DPS to gather more information. We sometimes just need to transfer calls to another department to get specific answers. And those are basically our tier 1 calls. Our tier 2 calls are when a family has a concern at their child's school, and it may not have been resolved at the school level, and they can call us for additional support.
What an interesting service that you provide, you and your team provide DPS, because as you were explaining that, I thought there are so many similarities as to what you do and into what communications is trying to do, right? And so I feel like this is why we work very closely together, and why you're on the show today. Kate, I have another question for you. Specifically, what is FCS's role in supporting families? You touched a little bit about this, but can we go in a little into depth with that?
Sure. When a family has a concern that has not been able to be resolved at the school level with school leadership, we assign those tier 2 concerns or cases to one of our specialists. And the specialist will work with the family and with the school leader to gather information about the concern from both sides, and then we can discuss possible outcomes. The specialist will then schedule a mediation or a meeting to have both the family and the school leader address the concern in question. That mediation is a structured process. The parent has an opportunity to express their concerns and what they would like to see happen, what the outcome is that they're looking for. The school leader is also given the opportunity to share their perspective. And once this occurs, the next step is to have a discussion of plans to better support the student. So we'll come up with plans that everybody can work on from that point on. The mediation also provides skill building for families to be strong advocates and partners in their students' education. Many families don't necessarily know what the steps are to get here. And that's a really important piece of this, is for the families to understand how to work through these problems.
Well, and I can also imagine we have a lot of newcomer students here at the district. So for our audience, those are new to country newcomer students. And I assume, just assuming that they don't really understand or know the customs of the United States public school system. And even if you came from Texas or California, I assume that there are differences in navigating the school system there. And so I think this is why what you do, your team does, is so important to help our families navigate, because you're essentially avoiding a lot of stress for families. You're helping them out in a time where they might not know the language, and they don't know the customs, and they definitely don't know how to register or navigate. And so this is where the FACE Helpline really comes into play, but also the other services that your team offers.
You're absolutely right. And the district is very large.
Yes.
There's a lot to maneuver. There's a lot to understand. And we have 200 something schools. And it's a hurdle to understand how to work through it. So yeah, that's exactly the point, and we have families, as you said, from other countries and have no idea about, how the operations go in Denver Public Schools. So yeah, we're there to walk them through all those things. We also provide customer service training to our schools and de-escalation training, how to deal with issues that come up. We also are partners with our school leaders, and we provide coaching, conflict management, and communication skills, because oftentimes, it's not an easy thing to have such a large number of families and different concerns, different languages, etc.
Okay, you mentioned how you and your team help families, but I'm curious, and for our audience members, how do you support schools?
Exactly, and that's just equally as important in that, when a school is dealing with parents who are unhappy with whatever it may be.
Perhaps a snow day.
A snow day, yes, that recently came up. You know, there's so many different issues that can come up, and nobody can be an expert on everything, right? And so, you know, we walk through different scenarios with our leaders. Sometimes we need to reach out to other departments to get them involved, make sure that policies are being followed. And we really, basically, we're there for a support in terms of how they can move forward, how to deal with a, you know, heavy conflict situation, and how to manage how they're communicating.
Why is FCS needed? You explained to us all the services that you offer, that your team offers, but why is it needed?
Wow. So, you know, as I mentioned before, we're such a large district, and, you know, 90,000 something students. And so when issues come up at schools, whether it's families or whether it's school leaders, we need to be able to help support navigating the system. It's huge. And it may be difficult for some people to even know where to begin. And so by having us as that first point of contact, then we can direct where things need to go and why they need to go to wherever it is. It may be another department. It may be explaining or educating our families on certain policies. And so we want to bring our families and our school leadership together, because it's a process that they need to work on together. We want, I mean, the main thing here is we want our students to thrive. And in order to do that, we really need to grow those relationships between the school and our families.
Okay, is there a final message that you'd like to mention to our audience, to families, students, or schools directly?
I guess I would say in general, you know, DPS is definitely, you know, the priority is for our kids to succeed. And that happens in all kinds of different ways. But being that our team is the team that takes all that information in and then figures out where things need to go and how do we get to solving issues or just providing information. I just think it's fabulous that DPS has this kind of program, because you're not necessarily going to find that everywhere.
Okay, how do people get in touch with your department?
Well, we have a helpline number, and that number is 720-423-3054. And people call that line every day. And as I said, you know, we get over 1,000 calls a month. So we can then begin dispersing where those questions or comments, whatever, where they need to go. We also have an email at FACE Helpline at dpsk12.org. And once those calls or emails come in, again, we're right on it, and we make sure that everything is followed up.
Okay, I want to thank you so much for coming on the EDUCA DPS podcast today, and thank you for this valuable information.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, friends and families, this concludes our EDUCA DPS podcast for today. I want to give another big thank you to our guest, Kate Diaz, for sharing this important information. I'd like to ask everyone who's watching or listening if you could please share this content and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Denver Public Schools Plus, where you can also find great EDUCA content and all of our other multimedia productions. You can also find us on all major podcast platforms. Just search for the Denver Public Schools Podcast Network. I want to give our gratitude to the entire communications department and a big thank you to our proud Superintendent of Denver Public Schools, Dr. Alex Marrero, for his continued support of the EDUCA DPS podcast and all of our multimedia productions. Don't forget to tune in into our next EDUCA DPS podcast, where the learning journey continues. And remember to tell your children more often, I believe in you and I know you can do it. My name is Javier Ibarra. Until next time.